The silver giant emerged from the dawn sky, its polished aluminum skin catching the first rays of morning light as it soared above Hiroshima. In the bomb bay of this B-29 super fortress, the Enola hung a single weapon that would forever alter the course of human history. The story of how Japanese engineers came to understand the full significance of this aircraft's unique design is a tale of technological achievement, desperate innovation, and dawning horror as the implications became clear. When they finally comprehended what the modified bomb bay represented, it was already too late. Before we dive into this extraordinary story, tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? It's incredible to see our historical community spread across the world. And if you're new here, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Each subscription helps us continue unearthing these fascinating stories that shaped our world. Now, let's get to the story. In the pre-dawn darkness of August 6, 1945, Colonel Paul Tibbets and his crew prepared for a mission shrouded in secrecy. The aircraft they would fly, a specially modified Boeing B-29 Super Fortress, designated number 82, had been personally selected by Tibbets from the assembly line at the Glen L. Martin plant in Omaha, Nebraska. This was no ordinary bomber. Unlike standard B-29s that dotted the Pacific skies, this aircraft belonged to a rare breed known as Silverplate B-29's, bombers specifically modified for a single, world-changing purpose. Tibbets had named the aircraft Enola after his mother, a detail that would seem incongruously tender given the destruction this machine was about to unleash. At Tinian Island's North Field, the massive bomber stood ready. Its four Wright R-3350 Cyclone engines would soon power it toward Japan. But what made this aircraft truly special wasn't visible to the casual observer. The most significant modifications were inside its bomb bay, an area that had been completely redesigned from the standard configuration to accommodate an unusual payload. Japanese military intelligence had been trying for months to understand the purpose behind these modifications observed on recovered B-29 wreckage. They were about to find out in the most devastating way possible. Japanese military intelligence had been tracking the development of American bombers with growing concern since the early days of the war. By 1944, the appearance of the B-29 Super Fortress over Japan represented a quantum leap in bombing technology. With its pressurized crew compartments, remote-controlled gun turrets, and unprecedented range, the B-29 could reach altitudes that put it beyond the reach of most Japanese interceptors. But it was what Japanese engineers couldn't see that would prove most significant: the specialized modifications to the bomb bay of certain B-29s, including the one that would soon become known as the Enola. The story begins not with the bombing itself, but years earlier, as Japan and America engaged in a technological race that would ultimately determine the outcome of the Pacific War. Japan had entered the conflict with impressive aviation technology. The Mitsubishi AIA-6M-0 had initially dominated the skies with its exceptional range and maneuverability, but America's industrial might and scientific prowess were already shifting the balance. By 1943, new American fighters were beginning to outclass Japanese designs, and the B-29 Super Fortress represented an entirely new level of bomber capability. The Japanese aircraft industry had been trying desperately to match American technological advancements. Nakajima Aircraft Company, one of Japan's premier manufacturers, had begun developing heavy bombers like the G5N Shinzan and later the G8N Renzan in an effort to create something comparable to American heavy bombers. Their engineers studied every piece of intelligence they could gather on the B-29, and in a few rare cases were able to examine wrecked B-29s that had been shot down over Japanese territory. What they found perplexed them. Certain B-29s appeared to have unusual bomb bay configurations unlike anything they had seen before. Standard B-29s were designed to carry multiple conventional bombs, with complex rack systems that could accommodate dozens of smaller munitions or several larger bombs. But the wreckage of one particular B-29 shot down near Nakajima's facilities, revealed something different, a simplified bomb bay with a single attachment point and a unique British-designed release mechanism. Japanese engineers noted the curious pneumatic doors and reinforced structural elements, suggesting this variant was designed to carry an unusually heavy single weapon. What they couldn't determine was the nature of this weapon, though rumors of American work on atomic energy had reached some scientific circles in Japan. The B-29 standard bomb bay could carry up to 20,000 pounds of conventional ordnance, distributed across multiple racks. It was a marvel of engineering already, capable of delivering more destructive power than any bomber before it. But the modified versions confused Japanese analysts. Why would the Americans remove the sophisticated rack system and replace it with a single mounting point? Why reinforce the structure at certain points? And why install special British bomb attachment and release systems when American systems were already proven effective? These questions circulated among Japanese military intelligence officers and engineers throughout late 1944 and into 1945. In the summer of 1944, Imperial Japanese Navy Lieutenant Commander Mitsuo Fukaida, who had led the attack on Pearl Harbor, was tasked with analyzing intelligence reports on American bombing capabilities. Reports crossed his desk describing B-29's with modified bomb bays capable of carrying unusually large weapons. Japanese intelligence had intercepted communications suggesting these modified bombers belonged to something called the 509th Composite Group, a unit operating independently from other B-29 formations. Their missions seemed different, often involving single aircraft flying at high altitude rather than in formation, and targeting seemingly random locations. What was the purpose of these specially modified aircraft? The answer remained elusive to Japanese intelligence throughout the war. The mystery deepened when Japanese radar operators began tracking unusual flight patterns from certain B-29s. While most bombers flew in tight formations for mutual protection, these special aircraft often flew alone or with minimal escort. They would approach a target, make a single bombing run, and then immediately depart, a pattern inconsistent with conventional strategic bombing doctrine. Some Japanese officers speculated they might be conducting photographic reconnaissance or testing new bombing techniques. Few guessed the truth, that these were practice runs for delivering atomic weapons. Meanwhile, at the Los Alamos Laboratory in New Mexico, American scientists were racing to complete the design of the first atomic bombs. The Little Boy uranium bomb created unique engineering challenges. It was enormous by conventional standards, measuring over 10 feet in length and weighing nearly 5 tons. The standard B-29 bomb bay couldn't accommodate such a weapon without significant modifications. This led to the Silver Plate program, which transformed selected B-29s into specialized nuclear delivery platforms. These modifications included removing most defensive armament to reduce weight, installing Curtiss electric reversible pitch propellers for better landing performance, upgrading engines with fuel injection systems, and, most crucially, completely redesigning the bomb bay with pneumatic doors and the British-designed bomb release system. The Silver Plate program began in 1943 with the first modified B-29 ready for testing in early 1944. A total of 65 B-29s would eventually receive these specialized modifications, though only 15 were completed during the active phase of World War II. The program was conducted under extraordinary secrecy, with even the pilots and ground crews unaware of the full nature of their mission until the final stages. The Enola Gay, designated as a B-29-45MO with serial number 44-86292, was one of these special aircraft, delivered to the Army Air Forces on May 18, 1945. For Japanese engineers examining recovered B-29 wreckage, these modifications presented a puzzle. Some speculated they might be designed for specialized conventional weapons, perhaps massive earthquake bombs, similar to those used by the British in Europe. Others wondered if they might be for chemical or biological weapons, both of which Japan itself had developed. Few made the connection to atomic weapons, as most believed such technology was still theoretical rather than practical. Even among Japanese nuclear physicists who understood the theoretical possibility of such weapons, the engineering challenges were considered so immense that most believed such weapons were years away from practical deployment. Japan's own nuclear weapons program, codenamed NEGO, had made minimal progress due to resource constraints and the deteriorating war situation. Led by physicist Yoshio Nishina at RIKEN, the Institute for Physical and Chemical Research, the Japanese nuclear effort never progressed beyond early research stages. This limited experience with nuclear physics may have contributed to the failure to recognize the purpose of the modified B-29 bomb bays. The engineers simply lacked the frame of reference to make the connection between the unusual bomb bay configurations and atomic weapons delivery. By early 1945, the strategic situation for Japan had grown dire. American B-29s were conducting regular bombing raids on Japanese cities, systematically destroying Japan's industrial capacity and urban centers. In March 1945, a devastating firebombing raid on Tokyo killed more than 100,000 people and left 1 million homeless, demonstrating the already fearsome destructive potential of conventional B-29 bombing. Japanese air defenses were increasingly ineffective against the high-altitude B-29s, and critical resources like aviation fuel were becoming scarce. The focus shifted from matching American technology to finding desperate countermeasures. As American bombing intensified in early 1945, the Japanese government poured resources into defensive measures and fighter development rather than attempting to match the B-29's capabilities. Nakajima's focus shifted to developing specialized interceptor aircraft capable of reaching the B-29's operational ceiling and bringing down the Silver Giants. Their most successful design, the Ki-84 Hayate, frank to Allied pilots, could reach the necessary altitudes, but was produced too late and in too few numbers to change the strategic situation. Meanwhile, the strange B-29s of the 509th Composite Group continued to fly occasional missions over Japan, practicing for their ultimate purpose. By July 1945, the 509th Composite Group was fully established on Tinian Island, with 15 silver plate B-29s ready for their historic mission. The uranium for Little Boy had arrived on the USS Indianapolis on July 26, while the remaining components came by air. Final assembly of the bomb took place on Tinian, with the complete weapon weighing in at 900 to 700 pounds and measuring 10 feet 8 inches in length. It was loaded into the Enola Gay's specialized bomb bay using a custom-built pit, which allowed the massive bomb to be raised into position. Japanese intelligence remained unaware of these preparations, still puzzling over the purpose of those modified bomb bays they had observed in downed aircraft. In the pre-dawn hours of August 6, 1945, the Enola Gay lifted off from the airfield at Tinian Island with its deadly cargo secured in its specially modified bomb bay. After a journey of 6.5 hours, it arrived over Hiroshima. At 8:15 a.m., local time, Bombardier Thomas Farabee released Little Boy from the aircraft's single-point attachment system. The bomb fell for 43 seconds before detonating at an altitude of approximately 1,968 feet. In an instant, much of Hiroshima was obliterated, with temperatures at the hypocenter reaching thousands of degrees and a shockwave flattening buildings for miles around. The age of atomic warfare had begun. The single bomb dropped from the Enola Gay's modified bomb bay released energy equivalent to approximately 15 kilotons of TNT, a level of destructive power previously unimaginable from a single aircraft. The blast was felt 37 miles away, and the mushroom cloud rose to over 60,000 feet. Of Hiroshima's 76,000 buildings, 70,000 were damaged or destroyed. The death toll is estimated to have reached 140,000 by the end of 1945, with many more suffering from long-term radiation effects. The specialized bomb bay that had confused Japanese engineers had delivered a weapon that changed warfare forever. As news of the attack reached Tokyo, Japanese military leaders were initially confused by reports of a single bomb destroying an entire city. Many were skeptical, believing it to be American propaganda. But when scientific teams were dispatched to Hiroshima, the horrifying reality became clear. The nature of the damage, thermal burns, radiation effects, and the characteristic patterns of destruction confirmed what some had feared. The Americans had developed and deployed an atomic weapon. Now the significance of those modified B-29 bomb bays became tragically clear. They had been designed specifically to deliver this new type of apocalyptic weapon. Dr. Yoshio Nishina, head of Japan's modest nuclear research program, was among the scientists sent to Hiroshima to investigate. He quickly confirmed that an atomic bomb had been used, reporting his findings to the Japanese government on August 8th. For the engineers who had studied those modified B-29 bomb bays, Nishina's report provided the missing piece of the puzzle. The strange configurations they had observed were specifically designed to accommodate and deliver atomic weapons. What had seemed like curious engineering choices now revealed themselves as purpose-built features for history's deadliest weapon. 3 days later, a second B-29 boxcar dropped another atomic bomb on Nagasaki. The Enola Gay flew on this mission as well, but in a supporting role conducting weather reconnaissance. The strategic implications were now undeniable. Japan's situation had moved beyond desperate to hopeless. Emperor Hirohito, breaking with tradition, intervened directly in the decision-making process, citing the new and most cruel bomb as a factor in Japan's need to accept surrender. On August 15th, he announced Japan's surrender to a stunned nation. The most destructive war in human history had come to an end. The surrender announcement referenced the atomic bomb specifically, noting that the enemy has begun to employ a new and most cruel bomb, the power of which to do damage is indeed incalculable. For Japanese engineers who had puzzled over those modified B-29 bomb bays, the Emperor's words confirmed what they now understood. The modifications they had observed were specifically designed to deliver weapons of unprecedented destructive power. The seemingly minor engineering changes to the B-29's bomb bay had enabled a revolution in warfare. After the war, as part of the occupation, American technical teams, including scientists who had worked on the Manhattan Project, came to Japan to study the effects of the atomic bombings. They brought with them technical details about the bombs and the aircraft that had delivered them. For the first time, Japanese engineers could fully understand the purpose of those specialized bomb bay designs they had observed in downed B-29's. What they learned was sobering. The modifications had been relatively simple from an engineering perspective, yet they had enabled the delivery of weapons of unprecedented destructive power. The technical details were revealing. The standard B-29 bomb bay measured 33 feet long by 12 feet wide, divided into 2 separate compartments. The silver plate modifications included removing the divider between these compartments, creating a single large bay. Special British-designed Type G single-point attachments were installed based on systems used by the Royal Air Force for their Tallboy and Grand Slam earthquake bombs. Fast-acting pneumatic doors replaced the standard doors to reduce aerodynamic disruption when opened at high altitude. The release mechanism was designed to ensure clean separation of the weapon from the aircraft, crucial given the deadly consequences of a malfunction. Japanese engineers could now see how these relatively straightforward modifications had transformed the B-29 from a conventional bomber into the world's first nuclear delivery platform. For many Japanese engineers, particularly those who had worked in the aircraft industry during the war, this knowledge was both technically fascinating and personally devastating. They had spent years trying to counter American bombing capabilities, only to discover that a relatively simple set of modifications had changed the nature of warfare beyond anything they had imagined. The specialized bomb bay that had confused them during the war now stood as a symbol of technological advancement with terrible consequences, a powerful reminder of how engineering decisions can have profound historical impacts. The implications extended beyond the immediate past into the uncertain future. If the relatively straightforward modifications to the B-29's bomb bay could transform a conventional bomber into a delivery system for atomic weapons, what would the next generation of purpose-built nuclear bombers be capable of? Japanese engineers who had once raced to match American conventional bombing capabilities now found themselves in a world where the technological gap had widened exponentially. The age of nuclear deterrence was beginning, and Japan would navigate it as the only nation to have experienced atomic warfare. In post-war Japan, this knowledge shaped the nation's approach to technology and defense. The 1947 Constitution of Japan, written during the Allied occupation, included the famous Article 9, which renounced war as a sovereign right and prohibited the maintenance of military forces with war potential. For Japanese aerospace engineers, this meant a pivotal shift away from military aviation toward civilian applications. Many of the same engineers who had once studied B-29 bomb bays to understand American capabilities now turned their skills toward rebuilding Japan's economy through peaceful technological development. The legacy of understanding the B-29's specialized bomb bay extended into Japan's post-war industrial development. Companies like Nakajima, which was dissolved after the war, reformed as civilian enterprises. Nakajima Aircraft Company became Fuji Heavy Industries, now known as Subaru Corporation, while other former military manufacturers like Mitsubishi transformed into the industrial giants that would power Japan's economic miracle in the coming decades. The engineers who had once been baffled by those modified bomb bays now led Japan's peaceful reindustrialization, carrying with them the lessons learned from their wartime experiences. For America, the success of the Silverplate B-29 program led directly to the development of the next generation of nuclear-capable bombers. The B-36 Peacemaker, B-47 Stratojet, and ultimately the B-52 Stratofortress all incorporated lessons learned from the modification of the B-29 for nuclear delivery. The relatively simple engineering changes to the B-29's bomb bay had established design principles that would influence strategic bomber development for decades to come. The single-point attachment system, quick opening bomb bay doors, and specialized release mechanisms pioneered in the Silverplate program became standard features in nuclear-capable aircraft. In the decades following the war, the Enola Gay itself became a powerful symbol and object of historical study. After being flown back to the United States, it was eventually transferred to the Smithsonian Institution in 1949. For many years it sat in storage, disassembled, and deteriorating until restoration efforts began in 1984. The restoration would take nearly 2 decades and 300,000 work hours to complete. Today, the fully assembled Enola Gay stands on display at the Smithsonian's Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center near Washington, D.C. Its modified bomb bay a testament to how specialized engineering can change the course of history. The planned exhibition of the Enola Gay for the 50th anniversary of the Hiroshima bombing in 1995 sparked intense controversy, highlighting the complex legacy of the aircraft and its specialized bomb bay. Veterans groups and many Americans felt the original exhibition plan focused too much on the suffering caused by the bomb, while minimizing the context of the Pacific War. Japanese peace activists and survivors of the bombing argued for greater emphasis on the human cost. The controversy led to a revised, more technically focused exhibition. For engineers and historians from both nations, the modified bomb bay at the center of the display represented both a technical achievement and a somber reminder of technology's destructive potential. Today, nuclear-capable aircraft continue to incorporate design principles first implemented in those modified B-29 bomb bays. Modern strategic bombers like the B-2 Spirit feature internal weapons bays designed specifically to accommodate nuclear ordnance, with specialized attachment and release systems that can trace their lineage back to the Silver Plate program. The technical solutions pioneered for the delivery of the first atomic bombs established precedents that continue to influence aircraft design more than 75 years later. For aerospace engineers, the modified B-29 bomb bay represents an inflection point in aviation history, the moment when aircraft design began to accommodate the requirements of nuclear warfare. The story of Japanese engineers studying the B-29's bomb bay design reveals much about the technological race that characterized World War II. Japan had begun the war with certain advantages in aircraft design, particularly in the realm of naval aviation. Their Zero fighter had initially outclassed American designs, but as the war progressed, American industrial might and technological innovation created an increasingly insurmountable gap. The B-29 represented the pinnacle of this trend in conventional bombing, while the Silver Plate modifications for atomic delivery moved into a realm that Japanese industry could not hope to match given the resources available. The gap in understanding those specialized bomb bays reflected broader asymmetries in scientific and industrial capability between Japan and the United States by the war's end. While Japanese engineers were skilled and resourceful, they lacked the enormous industrial base and scientific infrastructure that enabled America's Manhattan Project. The United States had invested approximately $2 billion, equivalent to about $29 billion today, in developing atomic weapons, employed over 130,000 people, and built entire secret cities dedicated to the project. Japan's more limited resources meant that even if their engineers had correctly identified the purpose of those modified bomb bays earlier, they could not have developed countermeasures or matched the capability. For the engineers who had examined those downed B-29s during the war, the post-war revelations about the purpose of the modified bomb bays carried personal significance. Many had dedicated their professional lives to Japan's war effort, only to discover that relatively straightforward modifications to an enemy bomber had rendered their work obsolete. Some found themselves questioning the value of technological advancement divorced from ethical considerations. Others drew different lessons, seeing in the B-29's specialized bomb bay a reminder of how focused engineering solutions can solve seemingly insurmountable problems, a principle they would apply to Japan's post-war industrial reconstruction. The modified bomb bay also represented a milestone in the relationship between civilian and military technology. Many of the engineers who worked on the Silver Plate program had backgrounds in commercial aviation, adapting their skills to military requirements. Similarly, after the war, Japanese aircraft engineers who had studied those bomb bays would adapt their wartime knowledge to peaceful purposes, contributing to Japan's rise as an industrial power. This transfer of expertise between military and civilian applications has characterized aviation development throughout its history, with the specialized B-29 bomb bay standing as a particularly consequential example. When Japanese engineers finally understood the purpose of the Enola specialized bomb bay, it represented more than just a technical revelation. It marked the dawning recognition that warfare had fundamentally changed. The specialized attachment points, the reinforced structures, the pneumatic doors. These seemingly minor modifications had enabled the deployment of a weapon that could destroy an entire city in seconds. The engineering was elegant in its simplicity, terrifying in its implications. A single aircraft with a single bomb could now accomplish what once required hundreds of bombers carrying thousands of conventional munitions. This revelation had profound effects on Japan's post-war technological development. Having experienced firsthand the destructive potential of nuclear weapons, Japan would go on to renounce nuclear armaments and focus instead on peaceful applications of atomic energy. Japanese engineers who had once worked on warplanes for Nakajima and other manufacturers turned their skills to civilian aviation, electronics, and other industries, helping to fuel Japan's economic revival in the 1950s and 60s. The trauma of Hiroshima and Nagasaki and the technical understanding of how such destruction had been delivered shaped Japan's approach to technology for generations. In the immediate aftermath of the war, some of the same Japanese engineers who had studied downed B-29s were recruited to work with American occupation authorities on understanding the effects of the atomic bombings. Their technical knowledge of aircraft design, combined with first-hand observation of the bomb's effects, provided valuable insights for both Japanese and American scientists. This cooperation, born from the shared understanding of the B-29's specialized bomb bay and its purpose, represented one of the first steps in the scientific and technical partnership that would develop between Japan and the United States in the post-war era. The legacy of the Enola Gay and its specialized bomb bay extends into our present day. Modern strategic bombers like the B-2 Spirit and B-21 Raider trace their lineage back to the silver plate B-29's, with weapons bays designed specifically for nuclear ordnance. The technical solutions pioneered for the delivery of the first atomic bombs, the attachment systems, release mechanisms, and safety features established principles that continue to inform the design of nuclear delivery systems today. What Japanese engineers glimpsed in examining downed B-29's was the first chapter in an ongoing technological narrative that continues to shape global security architecture. For contemporary engineers and historians, the story of the B-29's modified bomb bay offers lessons about the relationship between seemingly minor technical modifications and world-changing outcomes. The Silver Plate program did not involve revolutionary new technologies. It adapted existing systems and made targeted changes to fulfill a specific mission requirement. Yet these relatively modest engineering changes enabled a weapon that would alter the course of history. It's a reminder that engineering decisions, even those that might seem routine or incremental, can have consequences that extend far beyond their immediate technical context. The story also highlights the importance of intelligence analysis and the challenges of interpreting technical information without full context. Japanese engineers observed the modified bomb bays, but lacked the framework to connect these modifications to atomic weapons development. This parallels challenges faced by modern intelligence agencies attempting to understand emerging technologies and their potential applications. The specialized B-29 bomb bay stands as a historical case study in how technical modifications can signal strategic intentions if one knows what to look for. In the 21st century, as nations continue to grapple with questions of nuclear weapons, disarmament, and the role of technology in warfare, the story of the Enola Gay's specialized bomb bay remains relevant. It reminds us that behind every weapon system are engineering decisions with profound implications. The modifications that enabled the delivery of the first atomic bombs were, in technical terms, relatively straightforward, yet they changed warfare forever. For engineers in all fields, this history underscores the responsibility that comes with technical knowledge and the importance of considering the broader implications of their work. As we reflect on this history, it's worth considering how technological developments that seem modest, like modifications to an aircraft's bomb bay, can have outsized historical impacts. The story of the Enola Gay is not just about a single aircraft or a single mission, but about how specialized engineering can change the world. For the Japanese engineers who studied the B-29's bomb bay design and then witnessed the consequences of what those modifications enabled, it was a lesson in the profound responsibilities that come with technological advancement, a lesson that resonates just as powerfully today as it did in August 1945. Today, the Enola Gay stands as both a technological artifact and a somber reminder of nuclear weapons' destructive power. Its specialized bomb bay, once a puzzle to Japanese engineers, now serves as a physical manifestation of the moment when aviation and nuclear technology converged to change the nature of warfare. For visitors who see the aircraft at the Smithsonian, the modified bomb bay represents not just an engineering solution, but a threshold crossed, a point after which humanity had to reckon with the possibility of its own destruction through technological advancement. The Japanese engineers who first attempted to understand those modifications could not have foreseen the full implications of what they were observing. But their story reminds us of technology's double-edged nature, its capacity for both innovation and devastation.